Hey, tonight, you wake up in the middle of Tenochtitlan, the massive, breathing heart of the Aztec Empire. And there's a slight problem. You're completely barefoot. That's right. Your feet are pressed directly against the uneven volcanic stone streets, and to make matters worse, you've just stepped on something squishy. Probably a tamale abandoned under the midday sun. A wiry old man selling colorful feathers glares at you. A child laughs and points. Someone behind you mutters, "He must be a commoner." So, before you settle in, go ahead and like the video and subscribe. But only if you really enjoy what I do here. And leave a comment telling me where you're watching from and what time it is right now. Now dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's drift into tonight's quiet journey. You start walking slowly. The stone beneath your feet is still warm from the afternoon sun. It's not hot enough to burn, but it's close. And that's when you realize, for the Aztecs, shoes weren't about comfort. They were about status. Most ordinary people, farmers, fishers, artisans, didn't wear shoes unless they had to. Going barefoot was normal, natural, humble. But those huaraches, those were reserved. Not just sandals, but signals. Crafted from leather or woven agave fibers, some with intricate straps dyed in deep crimson, cobalt, or saffron, the kind of colors only the wealthy or the holy could wear. Some were even stained with crushed cochineal bugs. Fashion here wasn't glamorous, it was deliberate. You limp over to a stall. A fabric vendor sees your distress and lays out a woven mat of palm straw. "You look like you fought a mountain," she jokes. You laugh, a little embarrassed. You learn that in Aztec homes, shoes stayed outside. Mats were sacred space for sitting, eating, or simply resting. Sandals were meant for the world outside, not the inner sanctum. But don't think. You could just grab any pair of huaraches and pretend. Social rules were carved into the very soles. The style, the color, the length of the ties. Each detail declared something about you. And if you wore a style above your rank, well, the punishment varied. Historians still debate whether it was public humiliation, forced labor, or something quieter but more lasting. One thing is certain, nobody wanted to test it. As you sit on the mat, your feet grateful for the relief, you hear a snip-snip nearby. An artisan is slicing ixtal, tough fibrous strands from the agave plant, to weave new sandal soles. Sharp smell of warm resin hangs in the air. Everything is made by hand, slowly, patiently. It feels like a ritual. Then a procession appears, emerging from a side street. A line of priests moves silently, wrapped in heavy cotton robes dyed in deep shades, rust red, ocean blue, earthy brown. All wear huaraches with long straps coiling up their calves, all but one who walks barefoot. Someone whispers to you that walking shoeless was part of purification rituals, a sign of humility, of grounding. Some ceremonies required full contact with the earth. You follow them, still limping a little, now fully committed to your role as the clumsy, curious outsider. A bystander mentions that sandals were sometimes left at temple altars as offerings, gifts to the gods, proof of devotion. And indeed, when you arrive at a small shrine, you see them, rows of huaraches neatly lined in front of a carved stone pedestal. Some simple, some ornate, some tiny, clearly belonging to children. It's oddly moving. Even in death or prayer, your feet had something to say. The sky glows orange now, the edges of the city touched by gold. Your feet still ache, but you don't mind, because you've begun to understand something. In this world, clothing isn't just for covering the body. It's how the soul speaks, and then you see them. A pair of huaraches lying near the altar, abandoned. You hesitate. You slip your feet in. They fit. Not perfectly, but well enough. Coincidence? Maybe. Or maybe this is the moment your journey really begins. You barely get a chance to adjust your newly adopted sandals when an elderly woman grabs your arm with surprising strength. She mistakes you for a market assistant and points at a towering pile of woven fabric bundles. "Carry these," she snaps, "or may the gods twist your ankles." A bit dramatic, possibly, but you're not in the mood to argue. So off you go, stumbling through the stone pathways of the market with more cloth than dignity in your arms. As you walk, something catches your eye. The fabric you're carrying isn't ordinary. It's beautiful. Deep blue cotton with embroidered gold spirals, blood-red sashes with feathered fringe, rough brown agave cloth stitched with tiny shells. It glows in the sunlight, and then it hits you. This is currency. In the Aztec world, textiles were more than clothing. They were wealth. Her finely woven cloak, called a cuactli, could be used in trade, offered as tribute or gifted to gods and kings. Some pieces were so valuable that one cloak could feed a family for weeks. Others were taxed from conquered villages, proof that the empire dressed not only itself, but everyone under its control. When you finally reach the woman's stall, she begins to unpack the bundles. This is no random fabric stall. It's a gallery. There are bolts of shimmering white cotton from the warmer lowlands, hand-dyed patterns with reds extracted from insects, blacks from charcoal, and rare purples from coastal mollusks. She teaches you that color was everything, not just fashion, status. She shows you a deep indigo cloak with lines of crimson zigzag. Warrior, she says. Another with black and gold diamonds is for a priest. This, she adds, holding up a muted grey and brown weave, is for those who wish not to be seen. Suddenly, a boy approaches wearing a short tunic with an embroidered serpent. He examines the fabrics with the seriousness of a noble. Son of someone important, the woman whispers, choosing something expensive just to annoy his father. You smile. Apparently, fashion rebellion isn't a modern invention. You notice that many garments aren't stitched but wrapped, folded over the body and fastened with belts, sashes and pins made of bone or copper. The way something was worn mattered, just as much as the fabric itself. Wear a cloak off the wrong shoulder, and you could insult an entire priesthood. Historians still debate how rigid these dress codes were. Some say they varied from city to city. Others argue they were strictly enforced. But the bottom line was clear. Clothing was a message, a declaration, a warning, a prayer. At the end of the day, the woman hands you a strip of fine cotton dyed in dark blue. Here, she says, at least cover your shoulders. You look like an insult to the gods. You tie it loosely around your neck. It doesn't match anything you're wearing, but somehow it makes you feel more seen. The sun begins to set, casting long shadows between the market stalls. Around you, the sounds of barter give way to quiet. Your feet are still sore. Your back aches from the bundles. But something in your posture has changed. You're not just surviving this city anymore, you're beginning to wear it. You shuffle away from the fabric stall, adjusting the strip of cotton around your shoulders, when suddenly a commotion erupts nearby. A small crowd has formed in a semicircle around two guards and a young man on his knees. He's cradling something. In his arms, a pair of sandals. But not just any sandals, these are noble sandals. Huaraches with thick leather soles, polished obsidian decorations, and long crimson straps that wrap nearly to the knee. They're not mine, the boy says quickly. I just found them here. The guards remain unimpressed. One leans in, tapping the ornate toe with a long staff. These were not meant for your feet. You watch in silence, the tension thick enough to weave, because what's unfolding here is more than a misunderstanding. It's a case of wearing above your rank. And in this world, that's no small mistake. You step back, slipping down an alley and finding yourself in a quieter part of the market. Here an old man sits cross-legged beside a wooden frame, weaving sandals by hand. He nods at you without looking up. Found a pair, didn't you? He mutters. You blink. How does he know? He gestures for you to sit. You're walking differently. Now, happens when your feet meet history. You sit and he tells you a story, not with grand gestures or sweeping metaphors, but with slow, steady words. About the invention of the huarache, born not in palaces but in dust, made first by those who needed them to travel long distances, shaped by terrain, then refined by time. Agave fiber, leather, wood, bone. The simplest versions lasted for years. The finest were worn once. He shows you examples, soles reinforced with resin and palm, straps dyed with fruit and ash, even a child's sandal with tiny beads stitched into the heel. For protection, he says, or maybe vanity. Hard to separate the two. You ask where the design came from, he shrugs. Some say the Toltecs. Others say it was a gift from the gods. I say it came from someone tired of stepping on thorns. One pair catches your eye, soft leather, faded red, worn thin at the heel. These belong to a messenger, the man says, ran from lake to lake, carried whispers between cities. He presses your hand to the sole. Feel that. That's the rhythm of empire. He shows you a sandal with jade inlays, clearly ceremonial. These were never meant to touch the ground. You wonder how many objects exist only to be looked at, admired, not lived in. Historians still debate whether sandal designs were standardized or personal, whether each strap and stitch was encoded with meaning, or if much of it was interpreted by the eye of the beholder, but all agree the huarache was more than footwear, it was a language. The old man leans back, wiping his hands on a cloth. That boy back there? He didn't understand what he put on. That sandal spoke louder than his mouth ever could. As the shadows lengthen, you notice molds hanging from the wall, outlines of feet, large and small, each with names painted in neat script. He catches your glance. I make them to last, he says, for the living and for the dead. You thank him and begin to leave. He stops you. Those sandals you're wearing, he says, they don't tell your story yet. You nod. But they will. And with that you return to the street, where walking not just in sandals, but in something older, something waiting to be filled. You step back into the open street, the evening light soft and golden, and suddenly something brilliant catches your eye. A flash of green, a shimmer of blue, and a ripple of gold. You stop. A figure strides past you, tall and imposing, with a headdress that seems to scrape the sky itself. A crown of feathers, impossibly long, balanced like a floating sculpture. Everyone steps aside as he passes. You try to follow, because of course you do. That headpiece is not just decoration, it's a statement. But before you can get too close, a hand lands firmly on your chest. A woman with stern eyes blocks your way. You can't follow him, she says. You don't have the blood for it. Her voice isn't cruel, just matter of fact, like saying water is wet or jaguars bite. You take a step back, watching from a distance as the man enters a large courtyard where others are gathering. It's a garden of feathers, men and women in headdresses of every imaginable shape, rising like fans, curving like serpents, exploding like stars. A feathered parliament of status and power. A woman stands near the entrance, wrapped in a long cloak the color of aged honey. She notices your gaze. Come, she says, beckoning you. Let me explain what you're seeing. You approach. These, she says, sweeping her arm slowly, are not just accessories, they are altitude. She smiles. The taller the feathers, the closer to the gods. She teaches you that feathered headdresses, Quetzalpanacayotl, were tightly regulated. Every color had meaning. Green Quetzal feathers, reserved for the highest ranks. Scarlet macaw, associated with warriors and fire rituals. Even the arrangement mattered. Symmetry suggested balance and divine favor. Chaos, either genius or rebellion. Did you notice how the feathers swayed when he walked? She asks. That's by design. Feathers are chosen not only for color, but for how they move. A guard should never appear stiff, you laugh, but she's serious. In battle, warriors wore feathers to strike awe. In court, to remind others who they served. In ceremony, to become something more than human. You ask about women, could they wear them too? Yes, she says, but carefully. She points out a woman with a low circular crown of blue feathers and golden tips. Priestess of the moon, her feathers are measured to match the lunar arc. Historians still debate whether the height of a headdress was always proportional to rank or sometimes ceremonial. Some argue that regional customs influenced who could wear what. But what's certain is that feathers were a visual language, one that everyone had to learn, or risk being mistaken for someone you weren't. You watch a young man try on a modest headdress. It's a little crooked. A child giggles. First, time? Someone calls. He nods sheepishly. An older man helps him adjust it. There's laughter, not judgment. You're invited into a small workshop behind the garden, where artisans are sorting feathers like jewels. Blues in one basket, yellows in another. A woman uses a needle made from fish bone to stitch them into leather bands. Some take weeks, she says. A single mistake, and the headdress speaks the wrong name. You ask if people ever wore feathers just for fun. She tilts her head. Does anyone wear gold just for fun? No, feathers are serious. But she adds, there is joy in seriousness too. Before you leave, a boy hands you a tiny feather. Bright blue, no bigger than a fingernail. For dreaming, he says, put it under your mat, you take it. You tuck it into your belt, and as the sun sets over Tenochtitlan and the last headdress disappears into shadow, you realize that the sky itself is not the only place where feathers learn to fly. The next morning greets you not with birdsong but with scent, strong, strange, earthy. As you step through a narrow street, the air grows thicker, warmer, flowers, wood smoke, something bitter and something sweet. You follow your nose until you reach a wide canopy made of reed mats, under which several people are gathered, their bodies glistening with colorful pastes, their faces half-painted like living murals. You've stumbled upon a cosmetic pavilion, and by the look of it, this isn't a place for subtle beauty. This is body art with purpose. A woman motions you forward. Her hair is braided with dried petals, and she's stirring a thick turquoise paste in a clay bowl. You've got the skin of a wanderer, she says. Let's give it a voice. Before you can reply, she smears a cool streak of paint across your cheek. It smells like mint and minerals. Around you, others are dipping brushes made from cactus spines into powders and pigments, red from crushed insects, green from soaked moss, black from burnt wood. You ask if this is for festival or battle. She laughs. Both, sometimes the same thing. In the Aztec world, paint was more than vanity. It was sacred. Warriors painted their faces before combat. Priests painted their arms before prayer. Lovers wore colored lines on their chests to attract or signal intent. The palette had power. She offers you a bowl of thick, gritty paste. This one's for the sun, she explains. Protects your skin during long days in the fields. You hesitate. What's in it? Ash, nopal juice, a little crocodile. Dung? You pause. She smiles. Beauty is pain, and sometimes poop. You spot a mirror of polished obsidian. In it, your face now has 2 blue streaks under the eyes and a golden spiral on your temple. You look like a soft version of a warrior, or maybe a priest who missed rehearsal. At the back of the tent, a group of young people are mixing perfumes. They crush flowers, seeds, even resin into small wax balls. One is floral, delicate, like early spring. Another is so sharp, it makes your eyes water. For courage, someone says. Historians still argue whether these cosmetic rituals were daily customs or reserved for special events. But traces of pigments on ancient tools and bones suggest that color lived on skin as much as on cloth. One man offers you a salve for your feet, made from ground chili, clay, and honey. Keeps them strong and stops the smell. You apply it and feel a burn, then a calm. The pain fades. You're left with a slight tingle and a strange confidence. A girl next to you is painting her fingernails with a thick black lacquer. 4. The eclipse, she explains. It's coming soon. Someone behind you is applying tattoos, not with ink, but with tiny cuts filled with colored powder. You watch as symbols bloom on someone's forearm. Waves, stars, a maize stalk. A boy approaches you with a wooden stick covered in shiny paste. Lip gloss, he says proudly. Made with cacao and beeswax, it tastes like dreams. You smile and apply it. He wasn't lying. The woman who painted your face returns. She hands you a cloth pouch with dried herbs. For steam baths, she says. Rub it on your skin while you sweat. The color will tell you what you need. You leave the pavilion feeling transformed, not disguised, but more fully yourself. As if your body has been tuned to a different frequency, more vibrant, more present. And as you walk back through the sunlit streets of Tenochtitlan, every breeze seems to carry a new scent. Flowers, ash, fruit, courage. You inhale deeply. Today, you wear the city on your skin. The scent of crushed flowers still clings to your skin as you round a corner and hear a new rhythm. The heavy thump of wooden drums, the clatter of shields, and the chant-like breathing of warriors. You follow the sounds to an open square where a group of men dressed in bold colors and thick armor move with slow precision. Part training, part ritual, all spectacle. At first you think you're watching a ceremonial dance, but then one of them slams a shield into another's shoulder and you realize this is war rehearsal, Aztec style, and the fashion. Unforgettable. The warriors wear tunics made not of metal, but of thickly padded cotton. Some are dyed deep, red, others black, blue, or yellow. Each color representing a military order, a city, or a sacred animal. Their armor is quilted, bound tightly with agave fiber. No glinting chainmail here, just stubborn fabric packed with salt-soaked layers, strong enough to stop arrows. And the decorations, oh, the decorations. Animal masks carved from wood, cloaks with feathered spines, shields painted with stars and jaguar spots. Even the cotton itself seems alive with pattern. A nearby man leans in and murmurs, "A warrior must terrify before he strikes." You ask, where the real metal armor is? He laughs. What for? Cotton breathes, floats, deflects, and never rusts. The Spaniards wore iron. We wore storms. You're invited to help tie the cords of one young warrior's armor. It's heavy, not just in weight, but in presence. He adjusts his belt, checks his sandals, and nods to you. Now I look like my ancestors. Each part of his outfit is symbolic. The red stripe across his shoulder marks a battle won. The black sash is for a fallen brother. The small jade disc on his chest represents protection from death. His body is a walking codex. Nearby, another warrior is being painted, not with soft cosmetics, but bold, angular patterns in black and red. His chest bears the likeness of a serpent with an open mouth, reaching from shoulder to hip. A priest dips his finger into a bowl of paint and adds a single dot above his eyebrow. That is his father's star, someone whispers. Historians still question how much of this armor was practical and how much was psychological. The intimidation factor, after all, was half the battle. A soldier dressed as a jaguar, complete with a snarling mask and spotted cloak, could cause fear before the first spear flew. And yes, some warriors really did dress like animals. The Jaguar Knights and Eagle Warriors were elite classes, known for their prowess and the spectacular attire they wore in battle and ceremony. The Jaguar suits were made of spotted pelts. The Eagle costumes had full feathered hoods and clawed sandals. It was martial theater, and you can't help but be a little awestruck. A man hands you a lightweight shield, decorated with concentric circles and tassels. You lift it. It's surprisingly light. That, he says, was made for running. Our warriors didn't stand still, we flowed. Children watch from the edge of the square, imitating the movements. One boy wears a tunic of woven straw, trying to mimic the jaguar form. He growls, then giggles. Everyone smiles. Even warriors had to start somewhere. As the training ends, the warriors gather in a circle and chant, something low, humming, full of breath and repetition. It's not loud, but it vibrates in your bones. You realize then this isn't just about fighting. It's about becoming someone, something larger than yourself. Fashion here is identity, memory, and power woven into skin. As the sun begins to set, one of the warriors claps a hand on your shoulder. Next time, he says, bring your own armor. You nod, half smiling, half tempted, because now you understand in Tenochtitlan, even to go to war, you had to dress like it mattered. The war drums fade into silence as you wander into a quieter part of the city, where the streets narrow and the noise becomes more like a murmur than a roar. Here, the air is filled not with tension but with color. Bolts of fabric flutter on clotheslines, and laughter drifts from shaded courtyards. You find yourself in a neighborhood where languages mix, gestures blend, and styles collide. A woman beckons you over from under a clay-tiled awning. She's wrapping herself in a striking cloak, not Aztec, you realize, but Zapotec, woven with tiny diamonds in sunset tones. She smiles. Careful where you wear that one. Around here, clothes speak. This is where the fashion of Tenochtitlan meets its neighbors, the Mixtecs, the Zapotecs, the Tlaxcaltecs, and diplomacy is woven into thread. She offers you a drink, thick and spiced, served in a cup with unfamiliar patterns. Every region has its weave, every clan its stitch. And as she talks, you begin to notice the subtle differences. Cloaks longer than Aztec tunics, sandals with narrower straps, dyes made from coastal herbs instead of highland fruits. This isn't appropriation. This is fashion as negotiation. Around, you people are gathered in what looks like a textile exchange, but it's more than trade. It's storytelling. A young man from the highlands wears a tunic embroidered with symbols of rain and maize. A woman from the coast displays a wrap, skirt dotted with seashells. Their outfits are not just clothing, they're maps of origin. A noblewoman steps forward dressed in a hybrid outfit, an Aztec belt cinched over a Mixtec skirt, a highland shawl pinned with an obsidian brooch. "I'm marrying a Tlaxcaltec next week," she says. This is how we meet halfway. You laugh, then realize she's not joking. The clothing is a truce, a bridge, a pact made of cloth. Historians continue to debate how open the Aztec elite were to foreign styles. Some argue that diplomatic fashion was tightly choreographed. Others suggest that real influence came from the people, market stalls, street performers, intermarried artisans. But all agree, fashion was porous and it flowed in both directions. You're drawn to a stall displaying headbands stitched with unfamiliar animals, lizards, hummingbirds, sea turtles. The merchant, a man with scarred hands and a weathered face, explains, "Each design was gifted. We learn from each other. You're handed a sash dyed in deep teal and bound with red thread. From the mountains," the woman says. "To wear it, you must listen like they do." You nod, uncertain but honored. A boy runs past wearing a mix of styles, a warrior's tunic with a coastal skirt, laughing like it's the best joke of the century. No one corrects him. Later, as the sun starts to dip, two men begin performing. A mock dance of conflict and resolution, each changing garments after each act. First enemies, then allies, then relatives. By the end, they're dressed identically. The crowd applauds, and you understand something subtle but essential. Here in the weaving of worlds, fashion was both language and translator. Before you leave, the woman gifts you a small patch, a square of cloth with one red triangle and one blue spiral. "Opposite winds," she says. "Together they make the weather." You fold it gently and tuck it near your heart. Then, as night begins to settle, you walk on, dressed not in borrowed clothes, but in borrowed meaning. Each step forward, woven from many. Dusk descends quietly over Tenochtitlan, softening the city's edges in golden shadow. As you pass a low stone wall entwined with vines, a hush falls over the street. There's a presence ahead, calm, deliberate, otherworldly. A pair of temple guards open a carved wooden door, and without speaking, they gesture for you to enter. You step inside. The air changes immediately, cooler, heavier, perfumed with copal and crushed marigold. You're in a sacred chamber now. Not a grand temple, but an inner sanctum. In the center, standing like sentinels, are mannequins carved from cedar, draped with garments so ornate they seem almost too heavy for a human body. This is the wardrobe of the gods. A priest approaches, his robes shimmering in the torchlight. He doesn't greet you, only hands you a folded bundle of fabric. "You will wear this," he says. "Walk with silence." The robe is thick, stiff, embroidered with jagged symbols in gold thread and trimmed with feathers and tiny bells. You slip it on. It doesn't fit you, not really, but it transforms you. The weight on your shoulders pulls you down, yes, but also inward. You're not just dressed, you're occupied. Around you, priests are preparing for a ceremony. They paint their faces with bone-white dust, tie cords around their wrists, and bind jade beads into their hair. The garments they wear are not meant to please eyes. They're meant to channel gods. A robe embroidered with obsidian patterns is laid out in front of a small altar. "That one's for Tezcatlipoca," someone whispers. "The smoking mirror." You shiver. Another robe, feathered in white and turquoise, is prepared nearby. "For Quetzalcoatl," the priest says, "wind and wisdom." You walk slowly. Through the room, a cape with golden suns stitched into the lining, a headdress of maize silk and hummingbird bones, a tunic woven entirely from maguey thread, rough as bark. Every item here has a purpose and a cost. These are not costumes, they're vessels. Historians argue over how often such garments were used and who could wear them. Some claim that only high priests ever touched these clothes. Others suggest that dancers, or even actors in sacred dramas, might have worn versions of them in rituals that blurred the line between performance and possession. The ceremony begins. Low chanting echoes against the stone walls, rhythmically pulsing like a heartbeat. Smoke rises in spirals. You step forward as instructed, joining a line of participants. Each person wears different garb, jaguar cloaks, starry robes, flame-colored skirts. No one speaks. Each garment speaks for them. The woman beside you is wrapped in a cloak of night blue stitched with silver thread moons. She sees your nervous glance and murmurs, "The gods recognize what you wear, even if you don't." Eventually, your group ascends a short stair to a roofless chamber where the moon hangs above like a cold eye. One by one, each participant steps to the center, raises their arms and chants. When it's your turn, you do the same. Though your words feel like someone else's, your voice like it came from beneath the robe. Afterward, the robe is removed by 2 assistants. You feel lighter, not just in body, but in identity. You are released. The priest hands you a thin, woven bracelet. You won't keep the robe, but it will keep you. And you exit back into the night, blinking at the stars, your skin tingling from incense and memory. Tonight you didn't wear fashion, you wore divinity. The path from the funeral winds back toward the heart of the city, but your thoughts are far away, lingering in the ashes, in the folds of that cloak, in the silence of sandals placed with care. You're still half lost in reflection when you hear a sudden burst of laughter, followed by music, clapping, and the unmistakable smell of food being cooked over open flames. You follow it, instinctively, and what you find surprises you. A wide courtyard lit by clay lanterns, people gathered around stone hearths and reed mats, corn being ground, pots stirred, tortillas flipped. But it's not just the smells and sounds that grab your attention. It's what they're wearing. The cooks, the servers, the helpers, they're all dressed with as much care as priests or warriors. Aprons embroidered with maize symbols, tunics dyed the color of burnt honey, sashes decorated with tiny gourds, loops to hold spoons. You've entered the hidden realm of kitchen fashion. A woman with flour on her nose hands you a small bowl of hot, spiced atoll. "Careful, still boiling," she warns. Her apron bears a pattern of beans and jaguar paws. "This was my mother's," she adds. "She taught me that food tastes better when your clothes remember where it came from," you add. A look around and notice, each apron is different. Some are rough and practical, but even those are decorated, with fringe, with beads, with symbols that speak of clan, garden, harvest. Nothing is random. Nothing is without story. A man beside you is flipping tortillas on a hot griddle. His tunic is rolled at the sleeves, revealing forearms stained with purple dye. "Cactus fruit," he says proudly. "It marks me as a grinder." You ask why so much care is put into clothing just to cook. He shrugs, smiles. Because cooking is ceremony. And even the gods get hungry. Historians often overlook this, but recent evidence suggests that kitchen spaces were not only sacred, but deeply expressive. Clay figurines show cooks wearing decorated belts, dyed aprons, feathered head wraps. In some places, entire families wore matching motifs during feasts, especially when preparing ritual food. You spot children weaving corn husks into mock tunics. One has painted her cheeks with a natto and wears a leaf tied like a cape. She declares herself the Queen of Tamales, and everyone cheers. Another child wears an old, oversized apron and pretends to stir a pot twice his size. A girl your age sits under a tree, sewing a new patch onto her mother's cooking skirt. She burned a hole during the last eclipse, she says. This patch will remind her not to cook during skyfire again. You realize then, even accidents become fashion here. Mistakes are patched with memory. A burn mark? A symbol of resilience, a stain, a badge of experience. These aren't garments to be discarded. They're clothes that evolve. A pot bubbles over. A woman rushes to save it, her apron fluttering. Someone cheers. The stew survives. Laughter follows, and then someone begins to sing. A soft, rhythmic tune about maize and fire, life and rain. A kitchen hymn. You're handed a bundle. 2 warm tamales wrapped in cloth printed with spirals. For the road, they say, wrapped in care. And as you step away from the courtyard, now full and warm and smiling, the sound of the kitchen lingers behind you. The clinking of clay pots, the rhythm of chopping, the song of ladles against bowls. Tonight you've seen war robes and temple cloaks. But here, among steam and laughter, you found fashion with the deepest roots of, all because sometimes to dress with dignity means simply, I care enough to honor the ordinary. The temple disappears behind you, swallowed by night and mist. You walk slowly now, quieter, still feeling the echo of chants vibrating faintly in your chest. But a new sound pulls you forward, a low humming, the murmured weeping of many voices, layered softly like wind in tall grass. You round a corner and stop. A funeral procession moves gently down the street, torchlight flickering off white robes and silent, sorrowful faces. In the center on a woven litter lies the body, wrapped in layers of cloth adorned with flowers and carved tokens, and at the feet of the deceased, a new pair of huaraches. You freeze, because now you understand the final act of dressing. In Aztec, life was not for the living at all. It was for the journey beyond. You follow at a respectful distance, watching how carefully each step is taken. The mourners carry not just a body, but a soul in transition, and the clothing tells its story. The cloak bears the family's symbols in soft blue and brown thread. The belt, made of agave cord, has been knotted with the pattern of a long life. The sandals, freshly made, unworn. They'll need them, says a soft voice beside you. An elder man walks beside you, holding a small pouch of maize. The road to Mictlan is long, no soul travels barefoot. You blink. Even in death? Especially in death. He tells you that in Aztec tradition, the afterlife wasn't a singular destination. It was a long passage through challenges, rivers, winds, mountains, and monsters, and those who passed were given tools, a knife to cut through darkness, a dog to guide them, and clothing to protect them from the cold void between worlds. Historians confirm this. Burials often included garments, amulets, and especially sandals. There were even regional variations. In some areas, the dead were wrapped in symbolic colors to please specific gods. In others, the garments were plain to show humility. You reach the cremation field. The crowd gathers in a semicircle as priests begin the chants. One gently removes the sandals from the deceased's feet, places them at their side. Another lays a feathered cloak over the body. The flickering firelight makes the cloak ripple like water. A boy kneels beside the bier and places a folded piece of cloth, clearly hand-sewn, under the head of the departed. He wore this at my naming ceremony, the boy whispers. You close your eyes because now you feel it, the weight of meaning in even the smallest fabric, the way memory lives in folds and seams. After the fire is lit, the mourners step away, slowly. No one cries loudly, but the silence is full of love. One woman approaches you and hands you a strip of grey fabric. This was his sash. He'd want you to walk with it. You nod, overwhelmed, and tie it carefully around your wrist. As you leave the field, the path seems longer than before. You look down at your own huaraches, still intact but dustier now. You feel the pouch in your belt, the bracelet from the temple, the blue feather from the courtyard. And now this sash, each item part of a garment you're building with each step. One made of stories. You don't know when your journey will end, but when it does, you understand now. You will. Not leave barefoot. The quiet returns as you walk, now with a full belly and the lingering warmth of tamales in your hands. But it doesn't last long. You're stopped again, not by noise, but by fragrance. A rich, thick blend of smoke, crushed petals, roasted, seeds, and something sharp, something wild. You look up and find yourself at the entrance to what looks like a market stall, but no one is shouting, no bartering, just focused, reverent work. This is not for food or fabric. This is for the body. The stall is full of tiny clay pots, bundles of dried herbs, bowls of thick pastes. You've wandered into the world of Aztec cosmetics, and it's deeper than you ever imagined. A woman kneels on a mat, mixing something dark and glossy in a stone bowl. She dips her finger in and gently brushes the paste across her cheekbone. Protection, she says without looking up. and clarity. You're handed a small wooden stick wrapped in cotton. On the tip, a balm made from cacao and chili pepper. "For your lips," says a young man, keeps them soft and scares away liars. You laugh, unsure, then apply it anyway. It burns, and then cools, and then tingles in a way that makes you stand straighter. The cosmetics here aren't just for decoration. They're tools, weapons, armor. Scented ointments ward off evil. Pastes protect from the sun. Powders symbolize status or mourning or readiness for love. You watch a woman apply black powder around her eyes using a shard of bone. "Obsidian dust and flower ash," she says, "for seeing clearly in dreams." Another is dyeing her fingernails with a thick green paste. "To ask the gods for rain," she explains. A man rubs a grey salve across his shoulders and chest. You recognize the smell of copal and charcoal. He's preparing for a bath, someone tells you. It pulls the sadness out. Historians, have long puzzled over how extensive these practices were, whether they were everyday habits or reserved for rites of passage. But here, in this living moment, it's clear. Cosmetics were not luxury. They were necessity. You sit on a stool and are offered a mask, a full face covering made from a thin layer of clay and crushed seed. "It will harden, then flake away," says the woman applying it, like ego, like fear. While it dries, you watch others craft perfume balls, solid, waxy scents stored in gourds or wrapped in cloth. One is floral and sweet, another musky and sharp. "This one attracts," says its maker, smiling. "This one warns." And of course there's sunscreen, not from a bottle, but from crushed bark, flower oil, and yes, again, crocodile dung. Filtered and sacred, they assure you. You nod slowly and apply it to your arms. You're now glistening, fragrant, and slightly glowing. One woman calls you half human, half deity. You don't correct her. As your clay mask begins to crack and fall away, you feel oddly renewed. Lighter, not cleaned, clarified. Before you leave, someone gives you a tiny gourd tied with thread. Inside, a dry powder of flowers, ash, and salt. "For your dreams," they say. "Throw it in the fire when you're ready to remember." You place it carefully in your belt pouch between your feather and your folded sash. And as you walk back into the city, painted, perfumed, protected, you understand something new. To care for the body was to care for the spirit, and to be seen was sacred. The painted streets begin to glow under the rising sun, not yet hot but buzzing with quiet purpose. You walk with a clearer mind now, skin scented with ash and flowers, sandals broken in, a little wiser in the ways of cloth and feather. Then you hear drums, but not war drums, celebration. You follow the sound and step into a large open square, but this is no market. This is a seasonal festival, and it's breathtaking. Flags of woven fibers ripple in the breeze, hung between wooden poles. Mats are spread on the ground, layered with harvest goods, painted gourds, flower garlands, and food. And people, everywhere, people, dressed in radiant hues. You quickly notice a pattern. Everyone's clothes follow the same seasonal palette. Yellows, ochres, rich browns, deep greens. The colors of harvest, the colors of this moment in the Aztec calendar. You ask someone, and they explain that in the sacred year, each season had its own wardrobe, colors, symbols, and even rules for what could and couldn't be worn. You look around. A woman's shawl bears maize patterns in ochre and dark blue. A man's tunic has embroidered rays stitched in saffron. Children wear crowns made of husks and corn silk, and no one is mismatched. The gods are watching, someone says. You don't want to dress out of time. You learn that this is not enforced by fear, but by tradition, rhythm, and deep reverence. To wear the wrong color in the wrong season wasn't a crime. It was a misstep in the dance of the cosmos. One elder invites you to a long bench where she's preparing garments for the next season. Colder months, rain, smoke. "We weave memory into time," she says, showing you a half-finished belt with cloud motifs. Each thread pulled only when the stars agree. Historians still argue over how codified this fashion calendar was. Some believe there were city-wide regulations. Others say it was more fluid, passed through song, story, and family. But what's clear is this. Clothing wasn't just ritual, it was a calendar made wearable. You're handed a sash to tie around your waist. Rust red with a yellow stripe down the center. The stripe means you're walking forward, someone says. You nod. That seems right. A young dancer passes, his clothes made entirely of husks. Another carries a staff wrapped in dyed cloth. A girl walks barefoot with a mat of reeds on her back. She's carrying the sun, her mother says. Everything here feels like a painting in motion, and every figure knows where they belong on the canvas. You pass a group preparing food. Even here, clothing follows the rhythm. Aprons in leaf green, head wraps in maroon. A woman places sprigs of herbs behind her ear and says, "This is for luck, and also, it smells better than sweat." You smile. As the ceremony begins, drums quicken. Dancers take their places in a wide circle, their garments rustling with every step. There is no chaos, no mistake. The clothes move like seasons, like tides. You stand at the edge, watching, then feel someone gently guide you into the circle. You're in the right color, they whisper. You don't know the steps, but it doesn't matter. The rhythm pulls you in. Your sandals touch the earth in time with the heartbeat of the square. And for a few moments, you are exactly what the sash says. Walking forward, in the right time, in the right skin. The festival fades behind you like the end of a song that hums in your chest long after the last note. The streets are quieter now, and the wind carries the scent of worn cotton and sun-warmed stone. You feel the weight of the day. Not exhaustion, exactly, but something more reflective. And then in a small alley bathed in amber light, you see her. An old woman sits cross-legged on a woven mat. Beside her, a pile of torn fabric, broken sandals, snapped belts, and lonely feathers. But her hands work like she's stitching the world back together. One thread at a time. You sit without being asked. She doesn't speak at first, just hands you a piece of frayed cloth and a needle carved from bone. "Try," she says. You hesitate, then begin. Your stitches are crooked, uneven. She watches, doesn't laugh. "These belong to my grandson," she finally says. "He wore this in the rains." The thread remembers his laughter. You realize you're not repairing clothing, you're mending memory. In Aztec culture, old garments were rarely thrown away. They were patched, transformed, passed on. A burned tunic became a child's sash, a torn belt a bag strap. Every repair was a prayer of sorts, a refusal to forget. She pulls out a sandal, cracked sole, missing strap, and begins to rebind it with agave fiber. "Some say broken things are bad luck," she murmurs, "but we say they're just not finished yet." Historians once assumed Aztec fashion was all ceremony and symbolism, but recent studies reveal just how much resilience lived in the threads. Clothing was patched with maize husks, cactus silk, even hair. Not out of poverty, but out of reverence. A boy walks in holding a tunic torn clean across the shoulder. "Dogfight," he says. The old woman nods and gets to work. She adds a red patch in the shape of a fang. "Now it's a story," she says. You ask if she ever discards anything. She looks at you like you've missed the point. "If it still holds light," she says, "it's worth keeping." As she works, others join. A mother bringing her son's ceremonial cloak, a woman mending her own apron. One man hands her a cloak so threadbare you can see through it. She runs her fingers along the edges. "His father wore this in battle, and now it will be a bag for grain." You sit beside her again, this time stitching more slowly, carefully. You patch a sleeve, reinforce a collar. It's calming, almost sacred. She tells you that every visible patch is a sign of love. "We don't hide repairs, we wear them." A little girl brings her doll, its tiny robe torn. The woman fixes it, then adds a golden thread just for joy. "She'll dream better now," she says. When you finally stand to leave, she presses something into your hand, a small square of cloth with a single blue spiral embroidered in the center. "It's crooked," you say. She smiles. "Good. So are we." You walk away slowly, the spiral clutched in your fingers, and realize something. In a city of warriors and priests, of feathers and gold, the quietest fashion of all was this: the art of keeping things going, of refusing to throw away what still remembers how to hold. By now your feet know these streets. The rhythm of Tenochtitlan has folded into your stride, a mix of reverence and routine. You follow the scent of wood smoke and roasted peppers until you come upon another courtyard, wide and sun-drenched. There are no warriors here, no priests, just cooks and the hum of daily life. It smells like home, or at least the kind of home that lingers in steam and slow work. You're waved in by a woman balancing a pot on her hip. "We're feeding the neighborhood," she says, motioning you toward a pile of maize to be husked. If your hands are clean, they're useless. You roll up your sleeves and get to work. And once again, the clothing catches your eye. These cooks, young and old, wear aprons adorned with symbols you now recognize: spirals of maize, zigzags of fire, teardrop patterns for steam. Their tunics are rolled, patched, stained, but still beautiful. Kitchen fashion, practical but meaningful. A girl ties her hair with a sash printed with bean pods. "My grandmother was a grinder," she says. "She said your belt should know what you carry." You sit beside her, helping press dough into discs, and watch as others move with quiet coordination. A man with soot on his forehead fans the fire with a folded cloak. His apron has loops for spoons, a pocket full of herbs. Even the sandals here are different. Soles thicker, resistant to spills. The air is filled with laughter, spice, and memory. Someone tells a story about the time a cook burned his robe while trying to roast chilies and pretended it was intentional, said it was a fire blessing. They kept the singed apron and stitched a red sunburst around the mark. Now it's passed to anyone who earns a new burn. You're handed a cup of thick pozzoli and a woven cloth to protect your hands. The woman who made it shows you the corner, stitching 4 dots and a line. "My family mark," she says, "so my dishes never get lost." Historians rarely recorded these things. Recipes, maybe, big rituals, but not the daily dress of the ones who fed the city. Still, the evidence remains. Clay figures with embroidered aprons, murals showing cooks with head wraps, tools tied with cloth charms. One older cook has a bundle of cloth patches beside the hearth. "Each one is from a feast," he explains. "I stitch them together in the winter. One day it will be a cape for my son." You drink slowly, watching how the clothes tell as many stories as the food. Some have patches shaped like maize kernels. Others hold small feathers for luck. One woman lifts her apron to show you a pocket embroidered with tiny footprints. "To remind me I'm always moving," she grins. "Even the spills matter." A purple stain on someone's cuff becomes a vine with embroidered leaves. A burn hole turns into a flower. These are not uniforms. They're family trees. When the food is ready, everyone gathers. Workers, children, neighbors, sitting on mats, passing bowls. There's no formality, just a feeling of shared breath, shared warmth. And in this moment, surrounded by steam and quiet joy, you understand. To cook is to clothe the body from the inside out. And those who feed others deserve to dress like it. Before you leave, the girl hands you a napkin, rough spun but edged with a red loop. In case you ever forget the flavor of here, you fold it into your sash and step out into the evening, heart full, stomach warm. And somewhere between the salt and the stitches, you carry the proof. Dignity wears an apron, too. The sky over Tenochtitlan darkens to a deep velvet blue. The city softens, quiets. Lamps flicker to life one by one, casting golden halos across courtyards and corridors. You find yourself near the edge of the city now, where the homes are. Smaller, the paths more humble. Here the clothes are plainer but not forgotten. You follow the sound of weaving, the creak of a loom, the click of bone needles. An old man sits in the doorway of a modest house, repairing a cloak with fingers worn thin by thread. A woman beside him arranges folded garments into a basket. "These are for the ones who stayed," she says softly, "and the ones who didn't." You step closer and see what she means. The basket is filled with clothes of the absent. Some are old, faded, others like new. She picks up a child's tunic with a tear near the shoulder and holds it to her cheek. He grew out of it. And then he grew away. This is the wardrobe of memory. Each garment has a story. A tunic worn during a coming of age. A cloak stitched with a symbol for rain, worn in the last planting season before someone passed. A shawl used by a woman who no longer speaks, but still sits in the sun every day, wrapped in quiet. They invite you inside, where the walls are hung. with clothing like paintings, folded mantles, narrow belts, feathered sashes. But instead of being displayed in pride, they're hung in remembrance. We don't bury the clothes, the man explains. We wear them for a while, until the memory softens. Historians speak of Aztec altars and rituals, of public mourning and sacred fire. But few mention this, how fabric became vessel, how mourning stitched itself into everyday life, not just through incense and prayer, but through cloth. You see a man trying on his brother's old tunic. He was braver than me, he says. Maybe. I'll walk stronger if I wear his steps. A woman combs through a box of sashes, holding each one like a question. This was my mother's, she says. Still smells of mesquite. She knots it into her braid. You sit down and someone places a folded cloth in your lap, dark blue with faded green stripes. Try it, they say. You do. It's a little too short, a little too wide, but the weight of it feels right. Like a song with no words, a small fire burns in a clay hearth. Around it others gather, each holding or wearing something that once belonged to someone else. A hush falls. Then a soft voice begins to speak. Not a prayer exactly. A list of names, of garments, of moments. One cloak of wind, she says. One belt of early rain. One shawl that smelled of clay and laughter. And one by one the listeners nod, in recognition, in love, in memory. When it ends, no one claps. There is only silence, and then the rustle of fabric folding gently into arms. Before you go, the old woman gives you a ribbon. Simple, unmarked, soft as sleep. You'll know what to do with it when the time comes, she says. You step outside into the cool night. The stars blink awake. You touch the ribbon in your pocket, the last thread of a long, long day. And you know now, the most powerful fashion is the one that stays, even when the wearer doesn't. And now the city is quiet. Tenochtitlan sleeps beneath a sky that glows faintly silver like soft ash. The wind has slowed, the torches have dimmed, the laughter, the chants, the threads. They've all woven themselves into silence. You sit alone on a flat stone near the edge of a canal. The water moves gently. A single flower drifts past, lit by moonlight. You breathe in, slowly. Your chest rises and falls. Everything you've worn today, the borrowed sandal, the painted mark, the patched sash, it's still with you. But now it feels lighter. Like the clothes don't weigh you down but hold you upright. Like they remember for you so you don't have to. The wind brushes your skin and it feels like a grandmother's hands, soft, worn, knowing. You let your eyes close. There's nothing more to see tonight, just to feel. You hear a flute in the distance, a gentle, repeating melody. Maybe it's real. Maybe it's memory. It doesn't matter. You're safe, wrapped in fabric that once told a story, sitting on stone that once heard prayers, breathing air shared by warriors, cooks, dreamers, and as sleep begins to settle gently across your shoulders, like a final shawl pulled from the stars, you know. You were here. You walked in footsteps older than language. You wore the skin of 1,000 years, and now you can rest. Let your breath grow slower, let the darkness deepen, let your dreams arrive gently, dressed in feathers and quiet light. You are warm, you are wrapped, you are remembered. Good night.